Hello everyone! I was inspired to make this storyboard slash Snowglobe tumbler by one of the tumblers that Courtney's Customs made. I'll be sure to link her channel in the description. Hers was a regular, still tumbler, but when I saw it I was like, ooh, that would work really well as a snow globe. So this project took many steps and several weeks on and off. I work full-time and I have a family, including 2 teenagers. So the good thing about doing any kind of project like this is that you can do it in stages. So I got these snow globe tumblers from the Stainless Depot. It's the Hogg brand. They were on clearance. I hope they're not getting rid of them completely. But you want to remove the plastic sleeve, you want to remove the twist off bottom, and you just want this stainless steel middle portion for the time being. So I'm going to speed this up to about 2 times for now. So what you need to do is get yourself some electrical tape and tape off a small portion of the bottom part of the tumbler. So it's hard to explain. The flat side of the tumbler, you want to tape off a little bit of that because you're going to want to prevent any materials, including epoxy, from getting below like a couple of millimeters of that last portion of the flat side of the tumbler. You also want to tape off the top area. You really don't need to use 2 pieces like I'm using. I'll later show you another one where I'm just using 1 piece of tape. But again, you also want to tape off the top area so that no materials, that means glitter, epoxy, paint, get up into that lip that's at the top, because that's the part that you're going to be sealing the tumbler. So I gave it after taping, gave it a good sand I use an 80 grit sanding block, and then clean it off really well, see all that gunk, with isopropyl alcohol. And you need to use a good quality isopropyl. I use 91%. So then fit your insert into the tumbler. You really don't want any kind of movement of your wand or the foam while you're working on this project. And then grab yourself some painter's tape, and you just want to block off that silver portion on the bottom to protect it from spray paint. It just really saves yourself a lot of cleanup in the end. I also block off the upper inside of the rim from spray paint, but you will see later on I do end up getting more spray paint on the inside, and I just clean it up at the very end. So we're going to take this outside. You're not going to see me do it, but I'm going to spray paint this with an ivory color to match my gold glitter. I will show you, okay. So I have this like metallic spray paint, but I didn't want to waste it because it's way more expensive than the regular colors. So I chose to go with the ivory color. And I'm going to show you how to make this 2-toned, even if you only have 1 spray paint color and 1 glitter color. I'm working on 3 of these simultaneously, so I'm going to show you some kind of different techniques that you can use. Here's where I just use 1 piece of tape for the top. At least one of the tumblers I show you, I end up spraying 2 colors. I do the ivory at the top and a darker brown toward the bottom. So I'm mixing up some fast setting epoxy. I use the kind from CCDIY, Counterculture DIY. I really, really like it. It's thick. So the only issue I really ever have with it is bubbles. But I use a torch, I use alcohol spray, and if you're using glitter or diamond dust mixed in with it, it's really not that big of a deal. The stainless tumbler that you see on the right, I'm working on actually like 6 of these total. Only 3 of them are the fall leaves. The one on the other side is going to be something else. So I'm just using this gold, I think it's called champagne glitter. I just found it on Amazon. I'm going to put a very thin coat of the epoxy on the tumbler and then sprinkle the gold glitter only at this point on to the epoxy, and then I will let it spin and dry. I will also remove the tape after I'm finished glittering. I'll do my best to cut this video down, but the total filming time was over 2 hours. It was about 130 minutes. And that doesn't include all the things I do off camera that I will try to explain what I do when I do them off camera. But for example, the spray painting. So these, like I said, these take a lot of time and a lot of steps, but they're really fun. And this is such a good creative outlet for me. And I do enjoy it, the filming part and sharing it with you for inspiration. So anyway, hopefully by the time I'm done with this, it's not too long of a video. Feel free to fast forward anytime. So I gave each one a round of torching, and I may or may not have spritzed with isopropyl alcohol at this point because I know I'm putting glitter over top of this, so bubbles are not the biggest concern at this point. So I tried to use the shaker side, but it was just coming out too slow. So we go to the open pour side, and don't worry, I do save all of that glitter that falls off. It will not go to waste. Well, I can't say all of it. Some of it gets on my table, and then I end up blowing it with my hair dryer or the heat gun off of the table onto the floor. So yeah, pretty easy. And again, I will show you how I turn these into two-tone glitters. I will also show you how I do an ombre of 2 different types of glitters, 2 different colors of glitters on top of 2 different colors of paints. After you remove the tape, just take a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on a paper towel and clean up any little bits of epoxy that may have gotten onto the stainless steel where you didn't want it. Having these cups perfectly level at this point is not the biggest deal. It's just a very small amount of thick epoxy. So here's one where I sprayed an ombre of the ivory with, I think it's called dark walnut. And I did this because I had actually forgotten I had this very small container of brown glitter left over from a sample pack that I got probably over a year ago at this point. So I am going to show you how I do a third one of these cups with an ombre of the glitter. I am not I'm an expert at this at all, but I do my best and it turned out pretty. So the key is to hold the cup parallel with the table while you're doing the rim, the bottom rim area, and then you'll tilt the cup at roughly between a 30 and 45 degree angle, and then sprinkle the glitter onto the area you've already glittered and just let it fall naturally. And, you know, adjust as you go. The trick, or not the trick, but the key is to not go so heavy-handed that you accidentally dump too much glitter in one area that you don't want it. All right, and same thing with the champagne gold. I will focus on the rim first, just like that, and then cover all the spots I know for sure that need it, and then tilt the cup, sprinkle, and let the glitter naturally fall. What I didn't mention earlier is that I really only recommend using fine glitters for this portion of the Snowglobe tumbler, because if you use chunky glitters at this stage, it's going to be more difficult to fit the plastic sleeve back around this base and still have room to fill it with liquid. So if you're going to use chunky glitters, which I do, I recommend using them very sparingly and or waiting until the outer layer, and then you can add as much chunky glitter as you want to the outer layer. And that's exactly what I'm going to do with my leaf shape glitter. All right, so see that nice clean edge at the bottom? We don't have any glitter too close to the bottom, and we certainly don't have any on the very bottom. And again, that nice clean edge up at the top. The glitter was so sparkly, I couldn't help myself. Okay, so now we are going to color the bottom portion of this champagne gold glitter with some brown alcohol ink. This is something you can do if you don't have brown glitter. And of course, the sky is the limit. You can do this with any color glitter and any color alcohol ink. As long as it's not like dark on dark, that would probably be tricky. I ended up going probably a little too heavy-handed with the alcohol ink, so I will show you how I fixed that. You can see with the one, particularly the one on the left, the alcohol ink started to like really creep up. And so at first I tried to even it out by adding more brown alcohol ink, but then I was like, Brianna, you're not going to be able to see your tree. So I will show you how I fixed that. Almost anything you can fix versus just scrapping the whole project. But notice I am adding more alcohol ink over top of that first layer of alcohol ink just to make it a little bit darker. All right, so here are all three on the turner at once. The one all the way to the right is with the brown glitter. The two on the left are with the alcohol ink, and I definitely went overboard. So what I'm attempting to do right now is to dry the alcohol ink with my heat gun. I wanted to show you real quick how I reuse my plastic cups for measuring and mixing my resin. I just allow the resin to dry inside, and then you can pop it right out and peel it right off. At least with the epoxy I use. I can't say that for all epoxies. So here's where I made my next mistake, which was assuming that the alcohol ink was completely dry and completely stuck to the stainless steel underneath the glitter. Or I should say really the epoxy layer that was underneath the glitter. And it wasn't. So you're going to see yet another mistake that I make, but also how I fix it. So I'm taking as thin a coat as I can and covering the glitter, but also knowing I need it to be smoothed and sealed in. So I believe I put a second coat over the glitter after this one. But again, we're just sealing in that raw glitter. I start with the gold section because it's the lightest section, and I don't want my glitter to migrate into the dark section if I can help it. So that's why I'm starting up there, and I'm grateful that I did, because you'll soon see I had issues with the brown alcohol ink mixing into my epoxy and turning it brown. So I'm noticing now on my glove that it's brown. I'm like, okay, it's fine. I just need to keep my glove in the brown area and try not to mix that in. So I move over and I'm epoxying the brown glitter, knowing that that will not be an issue. So I go ahead and finish that one and then come back. And really, I just end up doing my best to keep the brown alcohol ink, the brown epoxy in the brown alcohol ink area, if that makes any sense. But then again, I will show you how I fix the fact that the brown section went up too far. What I'm going to do is sprinkle more gold glitter over top of that brown section and just kind of fix the ombre and make the champagne gold section more prominent, like the cup all the way to the right. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up, but that's what I'm doing. So I thought this was much, much better. And you really, in my opinion, couldn't tell a difference between when I used the alcohol ink and when I used the brown glitter. So once that was cured, I cut out a tree that I found on my Cricut design space, went ahead and weeded it and applied it to the cup. I found a tree that didn't have too many branches because I knew I would be applying a leaf to each of the ends of the branches. I also didn't want one that was like super sparse either, so I found a good kind of happy medium. So I just used my heat gun to make sure that my vinyl was completely stuck down to the cup, and then I'm applying a very thin layer again of the fast setting epoxy over top of the tree. What I didn't say was I did put a second coat of fast setting epoxy before I put the tree down. So the cup was mostly smooth, and I may have given it like a really light sand. It doesn't have to be completely perfectly smooth before you apply the tree because, hey, it's a tree and they have texture. So just really try to keep your epoxy layers thin while also achieving a smooth finish, because you really, again, want to make sure you can get that plastic sleeve back onto the cup and still have room for the liquid inside. So I'm just giving the cup a torch, and then I'll probably spritz it with some isopropyl alcohol, and I will eventually remove the tape. So here's the shape glitter. I found it on Amazon. It comes in these little packages, so I just put it into a little cup for better control. I end up dumping them into my hand for even better control. And I was just using these tweezers to apply the leaves to each of the ends of the branches. This was tedious. This was time consuming. I wasn't terribly concerned about the epoxy moving because it was a thin layer, but you may notice every once in a while I let the cup spin a little bit so that the epoxy didn't start to pool anywhere. But yeah, because this was tedious because you want to make sure the leaf is actually facing the right direction. You don't want like the stem, you know, poking out into the air. So I don't know. It wasn't my favorite step, but I felt like it was necessary because one thing I will probably mention again is that with these Snowglobe cups, you don't want the shape glitter or whatever you're putting inside that moves around. You don't want it to be invisible if the cup is sitting upright. Okay, you want to see what's supposed to be inside of the cup, even if there's no movement. So I really wanted to make sure, A, there was a leaf on each branch, at the end of each branch, and B, leaves also around the cup, like permanently stuck, so that there's always movement, even if the cup hasn't moved in a long time. You can still see the leaves. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up, and I'll be back with the next step. So after I lightly sprinkled some of the leaf shaped glitter around the cup, I'm taking the tweezers and separating any pieces that may be laying on top of another. Again, the purpose here is to keep the cup as flat as possible. So I did not want these leaves piling on top of each other at this stage. So separate them out. I really didn't have a whole I didn't try to have a pattern here. It was just kind of sporadic placement everywhere from the bottom of the cup to the top. Alright, so I mixed up another bit of the fast setting epoxy, and I am now covering the shape glitter with the epoxy. Trying to keep it thin, but also knowing that I really do need to get this smooth at some point. So not terribly thin, but also definitely not thick where it's gonna run or pool on one end of the cup or the other. I did not seal the shape glitter. You could spray seal with clear spray or even Mod Podge. I wanted to see what would happen if I didn't, and guess what? It worked out just fine. So if I can skip a step without sacrificing quality, I'm going to do that. So I believe I put one more thin coat of epoxy before this step. But if your cup is smooth and you feel like it's good enough to move on, then please do. So this is the step where we're going to seal our clear sleeve into the top of the tumbler. I have seen folks use epoxy. I'm using fast set epoxy here. Some folks will discourage fast set. It works for me, so that's what I'm doing. I have also seen folks use silicone at that step, and I've also seen folks use E6000. I think any of those will work. I do end up using silicone to seal the bottom, so why not use silicone to seal the top? Whatever works for you. So once I had the bottom filled, I used a little pipette to help me out. You put the sleeve on, make sure it's all the way down, nice and tight. And then I do put the lid, not the lid, sorry, the bottom that screws on. I do put that on to help hold it in place. If any epoxy or whatever you're using seeps out, there aren't all the ones I was working on, then you just wipe it up with a paper towel with alcohol on it and clean it up before it cures. Okay. Then you need to let it sit for 24 hours. I actually removed the lid after about 12 hours, not the lid, the bottom part, just so it could get some air and continue curing. This little well on the bottom, its only purpose is to connect the cup to the twisting part of the bottom. This well does not lead to the middle of the cup or anything. I like to fill it with hot glue. I don't want to fill it with silicone or epoxy, only because those items are more expensive. I want to fill this cavity just in case the liquid does get into the bottom area, then that's full and then the liquid won't get into there. Okay, so once that's fully cured, the epoxy around the top, actually, where the sleeve connected, this is the really fun part. I am mixing half vegetable glycerin and half distilled water. What you do is you mix them and it becomes cloudy, and then all of a sudden it will turn clear. So I wanted you to see this because it's pretty darn cool. And there it goes, right back to clear. A little bit hard to tell because it's on a white paper towel. But yeah, there we go. Maybe a little bit cloudy still, so I kept stirring just to make sure it was completely all mixed together. You can use a pipette to fill the cup. I believe I end up just pouring it in, so I will try my best to show you that. I am my own cameraman, so forgive the lack of camera skills. I'm also using my phone to videotape, not any high quality equipment. Oh, so I use these condiment bottles, so I'll fill the condiment bottle with the liquid and then squeeze the liquid into the well of the cup. But you can just get it in there any way that works for you. I like to add a little bit of the liquid and then the shape glitter. So about that far. Next, I'll add the shape glitter and then I will fill it the rest of the way with the liquid. You don't want to add the shape glitter until you've put some of the liquid in first. Otherwise, the shape glitter is going to get stuck at the top and we want it to flow as much as possible. I think here I add like way too much at one time, so forgive me. Again, I'm filming myself. It's difficult to do with only one hand. So yeah, this is fun because you really can't mess this part up too much. So you do have to tell the shape glitter where to go. Tell it who's boss. Use your pipette. Use your popsicle stick. Whatever it takes, but you want to push it down in there so that it goes where it needs to go. Ultimately, we want nothing on that metal surface. So see how I pushed all the glitter off? I'm going to fill it the rest of the way. I'm actually using the liquid to try and get the glitter to move down, because the more glitter that stays toward the top of this area, the more of it's going to stick to the silicone that I'm going to put in there. And then that glitter just becomes kind of wasteful. You're never going to see it. So the more glitter you can move in the downward direction at this point, the better. It doesn't have to be perfect. But you want to fill this well almost to that flat silver portion. And I will give you a close-up shortly. If you go too far up, then your silicone is not going to adhere or dry properly to the what is now the top silver portion of the cup. If you don't fill it enough, then you're going to be able to see the big air bubble when you really, I guess my goal is to not see the air bubble, but if you end up seeing the bubble, whatever, it's fine. So here I'm really trying to like tap the cup and push the glitter down, because as much glitter is at the top, the glitter is going to get stuck to the silicone. So there's a little close-up of the level of the liquid. You can use your pipette to suck up any of the extra liquid that might be at the top if need be. And then eventually you're going to need to dry this off and then clean it with a dry paper towel with isopropyl alcohol on it. You need that metal surface squeaky clean for the silicone. All right, so here we go, just making sure everything is clean and dry, especially because we used that vegetable glycerin, which is oily. So I do not recommend this brand of silicone, but what you'll want to find is 100% silicone, preferably clear. I will show you a different brand that I do recommend in a little bit, but at this point when I was filming, this was all I had. The odor is awful, so wear your respirator. And it was really hard to squeeze out of this tube, even though I had cut the tip of it, what I thought was wide enough. But anyway, I will show you a better option. So what you want to do is run several beads of the silicone, starting from the middle and working your way out. And then you're going to take a popsicle stick and kind of smooth it out a little bit first. And then what I'm going to do is one piece by piece, I'm going to drag the silicone from the center area out to the edge. And what this is doing is starting to create a seal between the plastic sleeve and the stainless steel tumbler. The goal here is to keep the liquid inside of that area and have it not go in the area that we can see here. If the liquid does leak into this area, it's not the end of the world, all right? But that is why I filled that little cavity with the hot glue so that the liquid wouldn't go in there. What will happen if the liquid leaks into this area is that your bubble, and you'll know what I mean by bubble, your bubble will just become larger. The cup will still work. It'll be fine. The cup is not compromised. So anyway, you want to smooth that silicone around. It will not drip down into the cup. All right. It is very thick and it only goes where you tell it to go. So again, we created that seal, and then now I'm just filling in with more silicone to kind of double up on that seal. And this also acts as an adhesive. So you'll see me in a little bit, I will put some silicone inside the lid and around the edge. And it will, as it dries, not only create a seal, but also be a permanent adhesive for the bottom of this cup to the rest of the cup. Make sure it's twisted on nice and tight, but not so tight that you crack the plastic or anything. So there we go. Using alcohol on a paper towel, I just cleaned up any overspill. Not that big of a deal, but you definitely do want to clean it up so that it doesn't impact the outside of your tumbler. That needs to dry for a good 24 hours. And at this stage, you could be done with the cup, but see how you can see the clear sealant there? So I wanted to cover that. Oh, here's another brand of silicone that I recommend, but I really recommend this brand, but get it in clear, not white. I got it in white by accident, but it's not that big of a deal. And then use a caulk gun. That is the best and easiest way to apply this. So after that was cured, I taped off the bottom, and I'm using my rim trimmer to make that a nice clean edge. But anyway, like I was saying, you could stop, you could be done with the cup. But for me, because I like my top and bottom of the liquid portion of the cup to be so kind of clean and protected, then I like to decorate the outside of the cup as well. All right, so I'm going to give the entire tumbler, except for the bottom, a light sand. Now, yes, this is an 80 grit block, but it's actually a very worn down 80 grit block. It seems scary that yes, we're scuffing up the acrylic sleeve, but I promise you it will shine right back up perfectly once we get epoxy on it. So I'm just cleaning up the dust with a paper towel and alcohol. And then here's where we're going to cover up the bottom area and add in some more leaves, and then also cover up the top gap area. So what I did was I took my dark walnut spray paint and that same ivory spray paint and gave them a very light spray on the top and the bottom. And then any overspray can be cleaned up with isopropyl alcohol and a paper towel. Just try to do it as quickly as you can after you spray paint, because the drier the paint, the harder it is to clean up with alcohol, and you don't want to use acetone at this point. The acetone will eat away at the plastic or acrylic sleeve. So I'm going to take make sure the paint's dry, and I'm going to take a very thin layer of the fast setting epoxy, put that on, and then apply the champagne gold glitter faded down from the top. And then the leaf glitter I'm going to put around the bottom, really trying not to let it pile up too much, because the more the leaves pile up, the more epoxy you have to put on to coat it, and then the thicker and heavier the cup is, and we don't want that. After I applied this epoxy, I did give it a brief torch. Again, we do have that acrylic sleeve on, so you don't want the high heat to melt the acrylic in any way. And then I did spritz it with isopropyl alcohol. I was really trying to avoid micro bubbles at this point. But like I said earlier, I do eventually put a coat of epoxy. After this step, I put a coat of epoxy with diamond dust in it, and that does help to hide any micro bubbles. Okay, so here it is with the leaf glitter at the bottom and slightly faded toward the top, and then cleaning up that bottom rim with any epoxy that may have kind of spilled over a little bit. I've tried to flatten this glitter out as much as I could. I will show you shortly what I do with any leaves that end up having their edges kind of sticking up. You want to take your finger, gloved finger, and run it around the rim, because you don't want any glitter at the very top of the rim. We're going to eventually sand that down, so you won't be able to see much of that paint anymore at the end, because you need to create a space for your final coats of epoxy to seal at the top. All right, so once that layer cured, I'm just taking a dry chip brush and just brushing off any excess glitter before adding the next coat of epoxy. Again, I'm using my fast set. And because I didn't really want to torch and risk, I don't know, burning the glitter, I used my heat gun on about a medium setting, high air, medium heat, to try and pop any of the micro bubbles. And then I will come in and spritz with isopropyl alcohol. Yep, there I did. I went for it. I used the torch. But there's the spritz. And again, let that cure. I really apologize that this next segment is foggy. My camera was having some issues and I really didn't notice, but hey, look how sparkly that leaf glitter is, right? So what I'm doing right now is looking up very closely at the leaf glitter, using my hand, my gloved finger, to feel around for any leaves that are kind of poking up. And so what I'm using are some really old, clean cuticle nippers. I used to do my nails a lot, and then I got obsessed with tumblers and other forms of art, so I'm actually reusing a lot of stuff that I used to use for my nails. So you can just nip off those sharp areas that are kind of poking up. It won't make a difference at all. But I do this because sanding these down from a really sharp point, all it does is just destroy your sandpaper. So I will nip these off. I will give this a very light sand and then another thin coat of epoxy. I'm also going to give the rim a really good sand at this point. This is where you can be pretty aggressive. You really want to expose a fine line of stainless steel at the top. So that is why I did not want any glitter in that area. Then you'll clean it up with isopropyl alcohol, and we'll be adding another layer of epoxy, like I said. And here is the diamond dust that I've been promising. Please, from experience, only use a small amount. It is really easy to overpower the epoxy with this. So I was working on several cups at the moment, so I have way more in this cup than I'm going to be using for those two cups that you can see. But again, a little bit goes a long way. All right, so here is a close-up with the diamond dust. And I was like, oh, I can't sing, but this was like the hallelujah moment to me because I could really see it all coming together. After this, I put one more coat of epoxy resin on top, and then all that was left to do was clean up the insides and the rim. All right, so here one of them is all nice and cured. Gave it a good shake. So you can see that the last round of spray painting that I did not tape off the inside like I probably should have. So I will be showing you how I get that with acetone. But the first step is to take my craft knife or X-Acto knife and scrape the epoxy resin and any glitter that is stuck to the top rim. I also try to get some of what's stuck on the inside, but I generally wait until I've used acetone first, and then I'll scrape up whatever is left. I just get my acetone in these bottles from Target. It says nail polish remover on it, but it really is just 100% acetone. And then I take a little bit of a paper towel, and some parts take some real elbow grease, others don't. So, you know, do what you got to do to get this stuff out. I will eventually be cleaning this with isopropyl alcohol and then taking it to my kitchen sink and cleaning it with dish soap and water and a bottle scrubber, like a bottle brush scrubber. With the acetone though, I do not go on the sides of the cup at all. I keep it on the inside and the very, very top rim where there is just stainless steel. The acetone will damage the epoxy if you get it on there. So try to keep the acetone just on the plain stainless steel parts. This was so fun to make. Like I said, lots of steps, but well worth it. I would recommend storing this upside down in the cabinet with the lid off so that when you go to use it, you start seeing the falling leaves right away. The leaves are starting to change in my backyard. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Let me know if you have any questions. Go ahead and throw them in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.